I'm telling you, when you walk in the congruence of who you are and you walk knowing in confidence that it's going to be okay and that you have everything you need to accomplish the work you're put here for, and you do that with gratitude, it changes life and you'll be able to find the treasures that are right there for you. That was right there for me, but who knew? Nobody knew, but it was hanging right there waiting for me.
Welcome back to Holistic Healing Podcast. Today I'm joined by Marnie Swedberg. She is an international leadership mentor, author of 14 books, and founder of womenspeakers.com. Welcome to the show, Marnie.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. Before we dive into your work and leadership insights, can you take us back to a defining moment that has shaped your who you are today and influenced how you lead?
Whoa, there are so many, right? I think that for me, really pivotal was that I started working for entrepreneurs when I was 14 years old. And so I first worked for a janitorial company and then for a ceiling tile company and then for a fitness company. I was all right with the entrepreneurs working in their office or even being a janitor for whatever. And I got to see behind the scenes how these people worked and how it was different from my dad, who went to work every day, 9 to 5. And I kind of fell in love with entrepreneurship. And then I had some good experiences and some bad experiences. Leaders who are really fantastic and some leaders who are not so good and make life miserable. So I'd say just my own experience in work has taught me so many things. And then over the years, of course, studied and learned and had lots of experiences myself.
I know you're focused mostly on faith-based leadership and businesses. What made you focus on that?
Oh, well, just because that's who I am. And I mean, that's a huge word for everybody listening. You want to completely be congruent with who you are. I always say it like this: when God strung together your 3 billion base pairs of DNA, he did it in a particular way. So you are so unique. There's nobody else on planet Earth like you. You're going to boss like nobody else. You're going to interact like nobody else. You're going to sell like nobody else. You're going to run your thing like nobody else. And so for me, because Jesus Christ is just the center of, I mean, he's the air I breathe. So then because of that, it would be completely non-congruent for me to try to do a business without him at the center. But having said that, I've had a retail store and a restaurant. And how do you make those faith-based? Well, you just bring biblical principles with you to work every day. You live out the principles that are in the Bible. And then also, at our businesses, we did play uplifting music and we had rules that applied to our staff. There is just no cursing going on anywhere in our businesses unless the customer was in the lobby or something, shopping. So I mean, you just bring who you are to whatever it is you're doing. And there's a lot of joy in that. I mean, it's so much freedom to not try to do it somebody else's way, but just do it the way you are. And that's actually where your success is going to come from, is your uniqueness.
Sometimes people confuse being a leader or leadership with being a boss or managing people. What do you feel like is are qualities and characteristics that makes a good leader?
So you said good leader. So I think we are all actually leaders.
Yeah.
So somebody's looking at you, whether it's your niece or your son, someone is watching you. Someone's watching you. You are a leader already. Now, whether you are leading well or whether you are leading poorly, that's the big question, right? So to be a great leader, I follow the model of Jesus. He was a servant leader, and he had in his purview, he came to save the whole world, big vision. Yet he was a very interested and dedicated to developing his 12 guys, and then to developing 70 more, and then to having them spread the message around the world. So he modeled servant leadership for us. And being a good leader is being the leader who truly cares about the people that you're affecting with your life, whether it's your staff or volunteers, or whether it's your customers or vendors or your children, whoever you're leading. A good leader is more concerned about the people that they're working with than the big vision, because that is what gets the big vision done.
If you had to give credit to one belief or mindset shift that has changed everything for you, what would that be?
I think for so many decades of my life, I felt like there wasn't enough, or I wasn't enough, or there couldn't be enough, or it would never be enough for me. And I think that that shift to there's enough, enough, and always more than enough, I think that shift has radically changed my joy in the journey, just to
Mm.
recognize that even if it looks like there's a lack right now, there's no lack. I'm looking out the window right now. So I'm talking to you, behind the screen is a window, and I'm looking at this humongous tree here that's been here for, decades, and it's just gigantic. And that tree simply never worries. That tree never worries where the next raindrop's coming from or whatever. It just is a tree. It does tree things, and it is not concerned. But as people, we tend to fear that, as I am being truly who I was created to be, planted here at this such a time as this, that we're going to run out of something we need in order to fill our purpose. And it's really impossible. If you're truly walking in the purpose for your life, which you can figure out by just what you're truly interested in and what turns your crank. I mean, it's so amazing. I love mission vision work for this purpose, because it clears up the confusion about why we're each here. It helps us to identify, oh, I so resonate with whatever, water, or I so resonate with air or wind, or, it helps you to see who you're here for, what turns your crank. That's really where you're going to get to the free flow of knowing why you're here, what you're supposed to do, and then trusting that there will be enough for you to accomplish that.
I know you work with a lot of speakers and
Yeah,
mentoring speakers, and public speaking is one of the big fears for most people. What
yeah,
advice would you give to people that feel called to speak, but they have either self-doubt or fear of
sure.
visibility and things like that?
I think that what I have kind of narrowed it down to over the years. So I've been connecting Christian women speakers with Christian women event planners for 23 years now over at womenspeakers.com. So thousands and probably hundreds of thousands of connections. And what I feel like with working with the speakers is that the fear comes in that you have to try to be somebody you're not. But that should never happen when you're speaking in front of a group, whether it's a group of two or a group of 2,000 or 20,000, the same person should be present. I mean, whether you love him or you hate him, our current president is exactly doing this. He's the same no matter where he is. He's like, he holds, I mean, he can just say the most awful things, and he'd say the exact same thing in person as he would on a platform. He's just the same guy, and that's why he can go on like a Joe Rogan podcast for 3 hours and not be worried about it, because he doesn't have any lies to hide or whatever. He's just him. What you see is what you get. I believe that for every speaker, don't model yourself after the president. Model yourself after Jesus Christ, who actually was perfectly congruent the whole time he was here. But when you are fully yourself, what happens is all that fear goes away, because you are no longer trying to pretend or to convince people in a salesy way of something.
Mm.
You're just literally sharing the authenticity of who you are. And that's going to take 80 to 90% of the fear away. I think most of the fear literally is the fact that you might get found out for being something you're not.
Mm.
But if you're just truly committed to being who you are, that fear just goes away. So I would say the number one thing is to get to know yourself and truly embrace who you are, how you think, what you think. Get it really polished up in a way that you can share it with congruity. It's different in your own head compared to when you're speaking from a platform or you're writing a book. But It's all the same content. It just needs to be formatted differently. So I would say the greatest fear in public speaking is that you're going to look like a fraud, like you're going to look like you don't know what you're talking about. And once you get past that, then it's just, do you have something relevant to say? And if you do, you'll be a great speaker.
Mm. Yeah, I think perfecting your content is probably key. But sometimes I think with people, it gets that they get into the imposter syndrome. You
Yeah.
know, even if they
Yeah.
are, if they know their content, they're still, have that imposter syndrome. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
mindset shift you have to do.
Yeah, so let's wind that back. So the first thing is, it isn't true that your content has to be perfect.
Mm,
I think that that's a false supposition that most people fall into. Is you have to be perfect in
mm,
order to be a speaker, write a book, be a president, whatever. You don't have to be perfect. We see evidence of that all over the place. So what you have to do though is you have to have a message that burns inside of you, some kind of a thought that is in you that you need to get out to the world. And when you have that, then the thing that's going to block you from taking that forward is that you're afraid. You're afraid of um, imposter syndrome is huge. I deal with it myself a little bit still, but mostly what it is, it's just not being real clear about who you are and about how to present what you're presenting. But once you're clear about that, just step into fully, it goes back to you being confident in who you are, not what you're going to say. Be confident in who you are and then develop the what you're going to say. That's not the most important part. The most important part is to be who you are and then present something that's important to you. Yeah.
What do you feel like is the common mistakes people make when they're stepping into leadership roles?
Unfortunately, the common mistake is that the power goes to our heads. That's the number one thing. It's completely different to be a leader. It's completely different to be a business owner. I'm going to give you one example that I had that was amazing, astounding to me. So I had already written some books, and my husband bought us a restaurant. So I had been a homeschooling stay-at-home mom with our kids, and I had written a couple books, and I was already doing womenspeakers.com, and I had stuff going on. But I had been a stay-at-home mom, and then we bought a little restaurant, and I was the manager of that restaurant. And so I would be at home and the restaurant would be open running with the staff there, and I would be at home and I'd get a call that the all the lights had gone off. They were just working and all the lights had gone off. And I'd be like, okay. So I would say, did you check the breaker? Yep, they had checked the breaker. And so I went over there and I went to the breaker panel and I turned the lights, I turned it on and off, flipped it a couple times, and all the lights came on. And I went home and I thought, they're such idiots. All they had to do is just do it a couple times, right? Okay. Happened again. Happened again. Same exact scenario. They could not get it to work. But when I got it to work, I felt like a superhero. And I felt like they were just idiots. Okay. Because it was just simply flipping the switch, right? However, I realized that there was something in my marriage that was exactly the same as what was happening to me now that I was the boss and there were people that were dependent on me as their boss. Well, in my marriage, I would not be able to get the dryer going. I'd go over and I'd start. Now, this is a simple task, right? You just turn the dryer on. It either works or it doesn't work. I've done this 1,000 times, but then it wouldn't work. And so when my husband would get home, I would say, the dryer isn't working. And he'd walk down and he'd turn on the dryer and it would work just fine. And he'd feel like a superhero and I'd feel like an idiot. And he thought I was an idiot. And I saw a pattern here, Luam, that I believe is happening in the unseen world, and I'm not going to assign it to anything. All I know is it's a pattern that when someone gets in a leadership position, there is kind of a conspiring thing going on to make that leader feel highly superior and that their people are idiots. And it's something that I have no idea about, except that I saw it. I saw it when I became a leader of a team for the first time. As you know, I mean, I'd been one earlier, but now I'm later, like in my 30s or 40s. And it was like, whoa, this is a high. That's a rush. When you feel that feeling, like you can come in and just do it and they're all idiots. That's like it's a powerful feeling that kind of wants to grab hold of you and keep you hostage to it. And I believe that is the number one trap that a new leader can fall into, is feeling that somehow they're highly superior and their people are idiots. And you know what I did to combat that is at our restaurant, and I carried this through every ministry or business I've been in. But when I would come into our restaurant, they would call me for help. They were in a rush and it's too much for them. They needed help. And so I would drive over, I would walk in to you know, there, if you've ever been in a kitchen during a rush, it's called a firestorm because it's chaos. It's like everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, but it looks like chaos. And so I would walk in, I would just say to the team lead, I would say, where do you want me? And they would just tell me, chop tomatoes or whatever. They could tell me anything and I would do it. I would not walk in and take over as if I knew what was going on. I would just walk in and I would do whatever I was assigned. That kept me humble and it had my team knowing that I was on the team with them. I would do anything I asked them to do. There was not one thing that I would ask my team to do that I would not personally be willing to do. So I think that's the kind of corrective response to the trap of feeling highly superior.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, especially nowadays with personal branding and social media. Uh, it could kind of ignite the ego. Um, so how do you lead from a place of service versus rather than your ego?
Well, I guess for me it's always kind of, I don't know, it's pretty easy for me because I keep getting humbled all the time. So I make enough mistakes that it's not too long between mistakes for me that I don't remember, that I'm just like everybody else. But I have taken that really to heart. Whenever I'm the one that has made the mistake, I'm the one that failed to do something on time, waited too late to start something, dropped the ball somehow, you know, overreacted, whatever it is. When I do that, one of the first things I hear in my mind telling myself is it's so good to remember how it feels to make a mistake. And that helps me stay really gentle and humble with the people I work with because everybody is going to make mistakes. You're never going to hire the perfect person who never makes a mistake, and you're never going to be the perfect person who never makes a mistake. So whenever I make a mistake, that is the moment for me to just refresh that in my mind. Right. This is how it feels. I didn't need anybody to tell me I did a lousy job there. I already knew it felt terrible. I hated it. I hate dropping balls. I hate making mistakes. I hate letting people down. And that's how most of my team feel like too. I wouldn't have hired them if they didn't feel that way. So I know that they already have that whole self, awareness of, I want to do better. I don't want to do that. And then the other thing is to look instantly for an underlying reason why that mistake happened. A lot of times, especially on our teams, mistakes happen not because people are being defiant or lazy or just a terrible employee. They happen because the system is not right and the system needs to be changed. What we're asking them to do is virtually almost impossible for them to do on a consistent basis. And so when we see that, especially if you see a mistake happening over and over, the same kind of mistake, that's a system error, and you need to go back into the system and find out where you can streamline that.
Sometimes when you're in the public eye, there's pressure to conform or compromise your values. What is your advice on staying true to your values?
I can tell you that this is a tough one that every leader will struggle with this. Every leader will struggle with this because the pressure can be so great to change, to take a different path. to do it a different way. And when, so I start with micro expressions for me, and I go all the way up to the direct confrontation. So you may be the leader that does not even consider making a change until it is someone's in your face screaming at you, I can't do this anymore. Or you might be the leader that's watching for the little eye twitches or the little shoulder shrug that's like, I just can't do this anymore. It's all the same communication. It's different ways people do it with us. But when we see something is making people react to us in that way, human nature is to either, fight it or flight it. You're either going to say, no, I'm just going to do this because this is the way I'm going to do it, or you're going to run away, or you're going to try to fix it. That's the other alternative. Keeping to your principles, that's the tough one there, because as a leader, you are constantly being influenced to rethink decisions. You don't get to make a decision that isn't being challenged. Most decisions will be challenged, and hardly any advance motion happens without a leader making a difficult decision. And again, some decisions are so small compared to others, but all the time as a leader, you have to be ready to listen to the input of the people around you, and then either change what you are going to do or not change what you're going to do. So I think to put it all in the same basket, and I think motherhood was really helpful with this. When your 2 or 3 year olds looks at you in a moment of anger when they didn't get another cookie or something and says, I hate you. And you feel that right down to the core of your motherhood little soul, right there, your little fragile, I want to be the best mom in the world soul. And it's just enough to break your heart. But you just have to recognize people will say things and do things and pressure you in different ways at different times. That's just like that. It'll hurt your heart for a moment, but then you have to just say, what is the right thing for me to do here, and go forward with that.
So when you're in entrepreneurship or business, you're almost guaranteed setbacks.
Yeah.
And in those moments, what are some practices or mindsets that keep you
Mm.
grounded and keep going?
Mhm. It's back to enough, enough, and more than enough. There will be enough. You'll be okay. It may not turn out anything like you expected or wanted or hoped. Literally, I mean, it may turn out completely differently. But if you are truly walking congruent with how you're creating what you're here to do, you don't have to worry about it. It'll be fine. You'll be fine. And I have the added advantage of just knowing God really well. And so I get to talk to him about everything. And that's my joy is I don't typically call another person instantly. I usually call 911 and I just start talking to Jesus. That's my 911. And I think that that's hugely important when you are facing a challenge, to remember you are not alone. You don't have to figure this out alone. There are people. There is a God. There are even sometimes, I mean, I remember one time my husband and I in the retail business, we just hit a wall and we didn't have anybody else to ask. We'd never owned a retail store before, and we didn't have anybody to ask the question that we had. We had an emergency need that we had, and we just prayed about it. And then there came a book. Somebody said something to one of us about a book, and we got it and we read it, and that had the answer in it. So I just think whatever you're facing, I remember one time we were out of town and our restaurant got broken into. And then somebody from our retail store, an employee at our retail store, had driven by and seen it. And they got a hold of the police, contacted us, got a hold of the police, boarded up the windows until we could get back in town. Whatever you're going through, you're going to be okay. Instead of looking at everything that isn't going for you right now, look for something that is going for you right now. There was one day my husband had asked me to pick the beans. This is a silly example, but it's so beautiful. He'd asked me to pick the beans, and I didn't want to pick the beans because I hate gardening, and he loves gardening, but I don't like gardening, and I didn't want to pick the beans. And he had gone off to work, and I wasn't going to pick the beans. But then there came this moment in the afternoon, and it was like the perfect opportunity. I kind of had to go pick the beans. So I took my bucket and my bad attitude out, and I started picking beans with a bad attitude, but I was picking the beans, and I was putting the beans in the bucket. And I was thinking all kinds of terrible thoughts about Dave and about gardening and all that. And all of a sudden, I just heard in my heart, I just heard this voice that just was like, Marnie, is there nothing for which you can be thankful? And I just realized, wow, I'm so focused on how upset I am about picking beans, but yeah, there must be. And I thought it's a beautiful day and I get to be outside. And a friend of mine was at that time laying flat on her back with a back injury. And I thought, I have the body, I can do this. I can just squat over here and pick beans. And I do love Dave and I don't like his garden, but I do love him. And I love eating beans are good, So I changed my whole attitude, right down a couple of feet farther down the road, they're hanging on the bean plant was his wedding ring that he had a few years earlier accidentally rototilled into our garden. And it was just a moment for me. And I thought, I could have just gone all the way to the wedding band and found that treasure hanging on that silly bean plant and just have had still a bad attitude. Like he's such an idiot. He does stuff like grind his ring into the garden. But because I had a different attitude, when I got to that ring, I was so amazed and excited and grateful because it was right before our 10th anniversary and I didn't have a gift for him. And I couldn't believe that right there when I went out and did the thing I was supposed to do next, even though I didn't like doing that thing, I found the gift that was waiting for me to give to him for our 10th anniversary. I'm telling you, when you walk in the congruence of who you are and you walk knowing in confidence that it's going to be okay and that you have everything you need to accomplish the work you're put here for, and you do that with gratitude, it changes life and you'll be able to find the treasures that are right there for you. That was right there for me, but who knew? Nobody knew, but it was hanging right there waiting for me.
Yes, sometimes with faith-based businesses, there's that struggle to keep a balance between spiritual surrender, walking by faith,
Mm,
with practical action. What is your
absolutely.
perspective on how to keep that balance?
I like to think of the metrics as my gas gauge. So while I'm driving my vehicle, I occasionally will look down and check that gas gauge or check the speedometer or whatever. The purpose of my glance down is not to freak me out. The purpose of the glance at the dashboard is to help me know where I'm at this moment and if I need to take any alternative, measures. Do I need to stop at a gas station or do I need to apply the gas or apply the brakes, whatever. That's how I view my business metrics is I look at the numbers every day. I mean, we've got swim lanes going out a year with projects, out in advance because I host 9 summits a year. So, I mean, we've got these projects that are going out. I never look at those kind of data inputs as something that's intended to freak me out. I look at them with a whole heart, like as if I'm driving my vehicle with full confidence that all is well. And if there needs to be a little adjustment, then we'll make the little adjustment. Or if there needs to be a major adjustment, we'll make the major adjustment. So that's how I do the daily kind of stuff. And then let's say that there's the a flat tire or engine blown. Now my van becomes a different kind of a situation, right? Now we have a crisis. So every day is just normal, 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 and then you hit crisis. Now, in crisis, you have to handle that differently than normal. But the first thing to do in a crisis, always, and if you are a first responder, or if you are someone who is in situations where you have to keep cool, you know that it's all about calming the frantic mind. The mind is going to react like it's a life or death situation, whether it is or not, whether it's your business or your vehicle. And so you just calm your mind. And I do that by reconnecting with God again, just consciously connecting with God, remembering He's got me. It's all okay. You can do deep breathing. People do that. That's a wonderful thing to do. Whatever it takes to bring things back into perspective, that while this feels like it's horrible and the world's going to end right now, it's not. It's okay. You're going to be okay. And just walk forward. And as you free up actually the physiology of the response, then the mind can start to think creatively about how to go about addressing the challenge that's in front of you.
For those listeners that are in their season of transition or uncertainty, which can get a little overwhelming, what advice or message do you have for them?
So it's a season like between at a job or their own business, or what are you talking about?
Whether you're going through a job change, career change, or you're changing your direction in your business,
Any major
they
change.
could be that uncertainty that comes with it.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So the thing that's coming to my mind is I've been married to Dave now for 40, I don't know, 43 years. And we made a commitment when we got married that we would never say the word divorce and that we would stick with each other until one of us died. And if that meant murder, that's how that was going to be. And we were teasing about that, of course. However, some days it feels more real than others. And so in the marriage, there was a commitment to a final outcome. Okay. Uh, what you're in the midst of when you're in a decision in a place of uncertainty, the reason that it's painful is because you have no commitment to the final outcome. If you have a commitment to the final outcome, you will still experience discomfort along the journey when you're in the unknown portions of it. But there won't be that excruciating pain that we feel when we have no idea what's going to happen. It's a whole different level. And I'm going to just use marriage again. I'm going to go back to that because in marriage, I say tides in or tides out. Dave and I could have tides in and we're just all, even after 43 years, we're all teasy and all, lovey and flirting and just happy and going great. Tides out, that's when like, why did I marry this man in the first place? I just can't stand this, that's tides out. And if you recognize that all of life is going to have this ebb and flow, seasons when you are very clear about what you're doing, you don't even worry about it at all. It's all just well in hand. And then seasons where you're completely out of control, you feel like, oh man, like this, and it's all just terrible. And I remember falling into bed one night. We had the restaurant, we had the retail store, I had womenspeakers.com. I was finishing homeschooling the kids. It was so intense. It was just like, I can't. And I remember falling in bed one night and I just said to God, it's all out of control. God, it has gone all out of control. And all I heard in my heart, Luam, was the words, out of whose control, Marnie? Out of whose control? And I'm just telling you that when you have the confidence that you're going to be okay, that you're not alone, that even this too shall pass, then you don't have this excruciating pain. What you have is you have extra, I just call it stress. It's extra stress that you're dealing with right then. It's extra stress. And then you just take care of yourself the best you can. But it is the bottom line, it's the underlying foundation there. Are you going to be okay? And once you solve that, it's kind of like getting up to speak. Once you solve that bottom foundational piece, the rest, while it takes work and effort and practice and everything, it'll come. It'll come. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Are there any practices that help you gain clarity on your values or your directions?
Oh, there are so many. I do a mission vision workshop at Marnie.com. It's 2 hours, it's online, you can just get it anytime. And that's going to help you kind of get started into just settling in to, discovering first, but then settling in and really even embracing how you are, who you are, and what you're here to do. So that's I would start there. There's just gosh, I think almost anything you would do out of all of the things available, just do one thing that sounds interesting to you. Learn how to deep breathe. Learn how to prioritize. I have a assistant that I use to help prioritize things. Learn how to batch things together so that when you're answering emails, you're only answering emails and you're not doing emails every, just intermittent all throughout the day. You can any kind of practice that's going to reduce the stress level, that's going to help you, eating better, drinking water throughout the day, pausing before you react or respond. All these things are going to help you. And the bottom line is if it feels like it's too much, you're probably doing too much heavy lifting. if you feel completely like you cannot breathe, there's something on the platter that needs to either go off the platter or be lightened up, something that can be identified that you can tweak or change or remove in order to make it possible for you to go forward. Because there's never actually a place where, it's so weird to say, but there's never actually a place where you have to be out of peace. I was flat on my back a few months ago with a back injury, and I just was feeling the pain. The physical pain was very real, but I was emotionally and spiritually very much enjoying myself. Even though I had the stress of knowing that all the balls were bouncing and I couldn't do anything I was supposed to be doing. And I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy. But yet my spirit and my soul were at peace, even though the outward and even the physical pain was real. So I just know for a fact it is possible for us to be walking in a way that no matter what hits us, we remain at peace. And our bodies will have reactions, and maybe our finances or whatever, our relationships, somebody else might, but you can stay at peace if you are walking congruent with how you were created. Yeah.
Yeah, once you find that inner peace, it's kind of hard to get bothered by the external world.
It always threatens, right? It's
Yeah,
always threatening. Here, get upset about this, get upset about that. I just said that to myself this morning. I could keep thinking about this and be really upset, or I could just know that it's fine. There's nothing I'm supposed to do about it right now. It's fine. Just move on. And I just moved on. It's amazing how many things will come to threaten your peace, to just steal it, literally steal it.
yeah.
But you don't have to let them. It's like a house with a lock on the door. Just lock that door and say, nope, this is my peace. I get to keep that.
Yeah, for me, it's like when I'm going through moments of a lot of different transitions and uncertainty, I go inwards a lot and I just focus on my health, on my fitness, on my
Yeah.
mindset. And once I get those right, it's like nothing else can bother me. All the same things that used to bother me before that, all of a
Mhm.
sudden, it doesn't even bother me anymore. So
Yeah.
it's one of
Yep.
my
And we can't,
tricks.
and yeah, right. And we can't do it perfectly, right? We're
Yeah.
gonna slip, we're gonna fall, we're gonna make mistakes. Just stand back up. It's fine. It's fine. It's a toddler learning to walk. That's how all of life is when we're trying to learn a new skill, like overcoming temptation to give into, just chaos or whatever. You're not going to do it perfectly. It's okay. I don't do it perfectly. Don't have to do it perfectly to usually enjoy the benefits of almost always doing it that way.
Yeah. I've heard you talk about the 5 levels of personal power. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, maybe tell me how much time I have, because that's a long program. I want to make sure to give you just what we have time for here.
Um, we have quite a bit of time, so it's up to you.
Okay, all right. So we're going to start with there's 5 power levels. Okay. And we're going to start with power level number one. And that is I am. That's just me. I exist. That's it. I'm here. And so you think of a newborn baby who has no ability to take care of themselves in any way. Basically, all they're able to do is breathe and eat and poo and scream. That's really pretty much it. They can't even roll over. They're totally dependent. And yet you think of the power of a newborn baby. That child can cry and the whole house is woken up. I mean, they have power just by existence. That's power level number one. You exist, therefore you have power. Power level number two is me plus my ideas. And this is where things start to get fun, because even a little baby, they see something across the floor and they have the idea, I'd like to reach that toy over there. And they don't know how, but the idea comes. This is how all ideas start. It's you plus something that comes into your head, and you think, wow, like for me, wow, I should start a directory for Christian women speakers so that the planners can find somebody who lives close to them. Wow, what an idea. You'll have an idea, and it's an idea. And honestly, Luam, a lot of people stop right there. Ideas never come to fruition. They're never acted on. We all know people that every time you're with them, they have a new idea and they never act on any of them. They just sit in their minds. And then it didn't really, yeah, nah, nah, nah. And then they go on to the next idea. So power level number three is super important because that's me plus my idea plus action. Now we're getting somewhere. So this is where you're going to apply some action to the idea that you have. And I always say it's technically it's action that accomplishes something instead of just action. So the example I like to use is when we bought our restaurant and we would start hiring these kids. We could hire at 14, and we'd bring in these 14-year-olds, and some of them didn't know how to sweep. So I would have said, "Go grab a broom and sweep the kitchen." And so I'd walk back into the kitchen and they'd be standing in one place, literally standing in one place with the broom in their hands, just moving the broomstick back and forth in one place, not moving their body at all, just moving the broomstick. I'd be like, "What are you doing?" And it's like, "I'm sweeping." And I'm like, "No, you're not. That's not sweeping. You're just moving the broom. Here, I'll show you." So then I would teach them how to sweep, and you get under the tables and you know, all that. Now they're taking action, and now something's going to happen because they're taking action. And for those of you with an idea right now, but you haven't taken any action on it, think of one action that if your idea was really going to happen, what is one action you could take right now today to start that ball rolling? Just one. And have the confidence that this thing might actually happen. So it's worth the effort to take an action. Okay. So that's power level number three. Power level number four is me plus an idea plus action plus passion. Now, this is where the people who are all about um, positive mental attitude and calling things in, things like this. This is where we get that because that's how the world is made. I told you earlier I was looking outside at a tree. Well, earlier, at some point, long before I was on the earth, a little acorn went into the ground, and that little acorn laid in the ground and vibrated like an acorn and drew everything it needed and everything it has ever needed to grow this amazingly huge tree outside my window. What we believe, what we act on, and what we get excited about is what's going to happen. That is how it changes. So when you have ideas and you start taking action, apply some energy to it. You have a choice. You can apply negative energy or you can apply positive energy. You can come at it and you can say it's just never going to work, and you can take that action and it's never going to work and it's never going to work, and that's the result you're going to get. Or you can take the positive side and you can say, "You know what? I just don't even know what I'm going to do after this action, but I'm going to take this action believing that there will be another action that comes after this action." Or you can say, "I don't know anybody who's ever done this before, but I think there's somebody out there and I can't wait to meet them. I am just going to be so grateful and I'm going to watch for them everywhere I go." You can just start saying some things that are based on facts that are positive, even if you don't have anything positive to see yet. So, Luam, I'm going to ask you, is that making sense to you? Is that possible, what I've just said?
Yeah, because I think, I'm big on visualizing what you want. And sometimes, when you are doing that, it's really good to visualize what the results will look like, what it would feel like, because I think that does a better job at one, you recognize it when it happens, because there's been times where I've wished for something or I visualized something and it happened, and I was months into that wish being granted,
Yes.
or I even, took note and gave gratitude. But
Yeah.
I think, not just visualizing it and just leaving it alone, but like actually visualizing what it would feel like to after it happens, and what it looks like, what it feels like. And that in your subconscious, it kind of pulls in what you want a lot faster.
We could talk about this for days. I just love this topic and how amazing the brain is, and how you have the top part of the brain, which is the conscious, and that's teeny tiny, like 40 stimuli per second. And then you have the subconscious is 20 million stimuli per second going on underneath here. And so when you have a thought that's fleeting, it doesn't really get implanted, but when you have a thought that you keep thinking and then you visualize it and you feel how you would feel, you add that passion to it, that excitement about it, and you're grateful and you're taking action on it. Boy, the subconscious just receives all that as clearly
Mm-hmm.
this is important. And that's how you vibrate. And when I say vibrate, think of like radio waves. So if I'm in my vehicle and I have the radio turned off, I'm hearing nothing. But if I turn the radio on, I'm hearing something, even if it's static. And if I change the channel, I'm hearing something else and something else and something else until something resonates with me, right?
Yeah.
That's how we are. That's how our businesses are. We are vibrating at a certain rate, at a certain level. We're sending out vibrations. And we all know this because we can walk into a room and say, "Ooh, what's the matter with you?" And they'll say nothing. But you knew when you walked in the room something was wrong just from the vibration, right?
Yeah.
So we are all vibrating something. And if you're vibrating congruently with who you are, with an idea that delights you, and you're taking action and you're envisioning it and being grateful for everything about it and going forward like that, you're actually drawing to you in the unseen world. You're actually drawing to you everything you need to make that happen. Just like the tree outside of my window, anything that's alive, that's what's happening. And so if you don't have any ideas going on, if you don't have any actions going on, if you don't have any passion going on, you don't have much going on, you're probably spending a lot of time watching other people's lives instead of living your own. And this
Yeah.
is the downside of Netflix and the downside of social media, the downside of just consuming other people's stuff is that you're not actually living yet.
Yeah.
There's a real life for you out here. And once you hit it, once you find it, it's like nothing can stop you. Not, you'll be unstoppable because you'll be congruent with what you're created to do. And everything in the whole universe around you is wanting to help. It's just waiting for the instruction. So that's power level number
Yeah.
4, which is insane, right? That there's another power level after that. But there is still one more because all 4 of these power levels started with the word me. And we actually don't even have to believe that there is a God to live up to power level number 4, which is an incredible life. But there is a power level number 5 that starts with the word God. God in the center, plus me, my ideas, the actions I take, and the passions I apply leads to power level number 5. And this is now where we're affecting eternity. Yeah, we still get to see all the great stuff that power level number 4 gets to see on planet Earth while we're here alive. But we're also investing into what happens after we leave this planet, after the body dies, because the spirit lives on. And so power level number 5 has God at the center, wants to do exactly what he created us to do, is partnering with him in that. And that's how we get to power level number 5.
I love what you said about level 5, because I think this world is, we're all energy, and frequency and your vibration matters so much, because sometimes what you want is there, but if you're not in the frequency to receive it, it's
Yeah.
it's like receiving a package, but it's going to the wrong house because you're not there in that
Right.
frequency.
Right. Right. I even think too, um, it's why people at power level number 4 can use this energy for evil, right?
Mm, yeah.
We see people who have become horrible people doing horrible things because they applied the same process somebody else used to do good.
Yeah.
And God, when he set this process up on planet Earth, when he created Earth to be the way it is, it's a process that he put here for good. It is people who make bad choices to we kind of brings us back to around where we started. How do you be a good leader and how do you avoid being a bad leader?
Mm,
A good leader is focused on good. A bad leader is focused on evil. And if you focus on evil, you will get evil and you will perpetrate evil.
mm,
But if you focus on good, that is what you will get. And that is what you get to share out. And my understanding of God from everything in the Bible, as well as me knowing him personally since I was 4 years old, I met Jesus then. But everything I know about him is that he is perfectly consistently good. And even when I went back through the Bible, a lot of people are like, he has kind of anger management issues in the Old Testament. Like, but if you really read it, He doesn't. He is so patient and he gives people so many opportunities, but then he steps in and he puts a boundary down and he says, no more of this, no more of that. And so he's a good father. And as a leader, that's what we want to be. We want to be like the best dad ever. And the best dad is just going to make sure that his kids, his staff, his team have whatever they need to be the very best people they can be, to be the very best employees they can be, to be the very best humans they can be, for their own enjoyment now and forever, but also for the benefit of everybody who ever comes into their path. Boy, that's what I want to be, Luam, and that's what I want you to be, and that's what everybody to be. Everybody be that.
Yeah.
Let's be that.
Yeah, because understanding that, when, like you said, everything can be used for good or bad. And this energetic, when you start to understand what this world is, which is
Yeah,
energy, frequency, vibration, you
yeah,
can see, when people are using it for bad, like mass
right.
energy manipulation, um, through the media, or you can kind of figure out how to escape some of these traps, of social engineering and mass
Yeah.
media manipulation,
Mhm.
energy harvesting, things like that. So it's,
Mhm.
it's good to
Yeah.
understand that we are more than this vessel, and there is, your aura, your mental body, your emotional body that can be
Yes.
affected by this world.
Yeah, I think we're receptors. That's what we are.
Yeah,
We're receptors. But again, like I said earlier, you can lock that door. You
yeah,
can't keep everything out. But it's in the Bible, it talks about a shield of faith. I love that. That's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Shield
yeah.
who we really are from the evil that wants to come and destroy who we really are. And I always say evil has the intent of having me on the couch in a fetal position doing absolutely nothing. Good has me out there fully living to my full capacity for the benefit of others and my enjoyment. I mean, it's like, wow, big
In the
difference.
spiritual world, it's energy work, right? You can
You can really, it's pretty obvious
shield
then,
your
isn't it? Yeah,
energy, manage your energy so that
right,
you kind of have that bubble of protection around you.
right.
No matter where
Mhm.
you are, your emotions can't get affected, your mental can't be affected, and your vibration can't be affected by the outside world.
Yeah. I always like to say, okay, again, it's back to that perfectionistic thing that we like to go to right away. All of us want to be perfect, but
Hmm.
so we can't do it perfectly. And when it comes to this, like if you use the shield analogy, I always say I can feel when an arrow hits my shield.
Hmm.
I can feel that, but it does not do what it would have done if the arrow would have gone right into me. Totally different feeling, right?
Hmm.
And totally different effect. So it's not that you don't feel it. You still feel it and you still have
Hmm.
to deal with it, but it's not like a mortal wound. You're not down for the count. So it's
And if it
way
does
different.
penetrate, if the arrow does penetrate, it was meant to teach
Yeah,
you a
and be healed.
lesson of
Be healed.
what
Yes.
is missing. Why
Yeah.
did it penetrate? There must be holes in your
Hmm.
security system, basically.
I love that. Yep. Love that. Yeah. I had one of those not too long ago. I realized that I called it a chink in my armor. But there was just a place where, and it was, this is how all of them happen. All of the places that were not shored up, it's all based on a deception. We have believed a lie about something, and that lie causes us to be vulnerable. So I was overly concerned about the nurture of a certain group of people. I was overly had like a little bit of a God complex. I wanted to protect them from harm. I wanted to make sure. And what happens in that particular situation, what happened was that me being overly involved there, overly protective, caused a problem. And that hurt me and it hurt them from me. And I was so confused by it because my motive was so good, it was so good. But I had believed the lie that it was my responsibility to do the protection. Not true. Not true. I'm responsible to take the actions I'm supposed to take, but to let the outcomes be what the outcomes are. And that's where it can get pretty confusing. Those outcomes sometimes aren't what we expect or what we looked for, But just again, remember, we can't see everything. We can only see as much as we can see. There's a lot more going on that we can't see. And the overall good is what's being gone for and not for this specific thing. That was so unclear. Sorry.
No, it's definitely clear because my mind just translated it to the same
Oh,
thing in
good.
the spiritual term
Yeah,
because that
good.
also happens to me. I've been through those situations where,
Hmm.
in the spiritual sense, sometimes you can know things and you try to, again, play almost playing God, right?
Yeah.
Trying to,
Hmm.
you know what's going to happen and you're exhausting yourself trying to save
Right.
people from themselves because you know what the
Yeah.
outcome is going to be. And then I had to
Hmm.
learn, like, wait a minute, you are not God, you are not the universe. It's not your
Yeah.
responsibility.
Right.
And if you do it, everyone learns in their own time. And I find that if you do try to change that outcome, it ends up backfiring anyway. So
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
something you have to learn, even in being a spiritual person, uh, is to not play God.
I actually have a terrible, wonderful visual that I use now when I'm going into something like that. I call it running in front of the bus.
Mm,
And it's like every time I run in front of the bus that was supposed to be going where it's going, I'm going to get run over. And I just have to remember, is this the time for me to step out or is this not the time? And to remember that when I step out improperly, when I step in front of a disaster about to happen, that has nothing to do with my making of it. Nothing, I'm not even supposed to solve it. I just see it and I go and I try to get in front of it. That's going to get me run over every time. And
mm,
the bus analogy has helped me to just pause for a moment and see it for what it is, because it's just like saying no to anything else. Every time I say yes to something, I've said no to something else, but every time I say no to something, I've said yes to something else. And when I say no, I'm not going to run in and try to be the savior here when that's
mm,
not what I'm supposed to be doing right now. I save myself from being run over and incapacitated, at least for a little while, as I process what just happened and make apologies or whatever I have to do. Every time I say no to something, I have said yes to something else. And so no is sometimes the best answer.
mm. I've learned to get out of hero mode and just be a guide.
Yep.
And if people want to
Yep.
follow, that's their choice.
Yep.
If they don't, they
Right.
don't. And
It's really
surrender
true.
control.
And that's when we live in Florida now, and in an area with a lot of homeless people. That
Mm,
was one of the first things we had to learn with dealing with truly homeless people, was that the one thing that they have left is the ability to choose for themselves. That's the one thing they have. They don't have a home, they don't have money, they don't have a car. A lot of them don't have health, but they do have the ability to choose for themselves. And if you take that away, they have nothing.
mm.
So if that's true for a homeless person, it is also true for every other person in our lives. Don't ever take away a person's choice.
If you could leave our listeners with one piece of wisdom about fully stepping into your purpose, what would that be?
I'm going to just quote my favorite Bible verse. It's from 2 Corinthians 9:8. And I love it because it is what happens when we really do life God's way, with God and God's way. It goes like this: But God is able to make all grace abound toward you, so that in all things, at all times, having everything you need, you may abound in every good work. And I love that because it's back to the enough, enough, and more than enough. It
Mm.
gives me the courage and the confidence to say, I, Marnie, by myself, can do it sometimes, okay, some of the time. But God, with God, I get to do everything I was created to do with abundance, with excellence, all of the time. And I don't have to worry about being perfect, but that's what I get to do, is I just get to go forward with the confidence that that's how I get to live.
Well, Marnie, this has been a lovely conversation. Is there anything you want to leave the listeners with before we close it out?
Yeah, I think I'm going to encourage you to really discover and embrace who you are, because you are amazing and you are unique. And I'm going to tell this little story. There was a bicycle that won a race, and he was feeling pretty good about himself until he saw the race car go by. And he thought, man, I don't even have an engine. Then the race car that won the race was feeling really good because he had just won. But then he saw an airplane go by and he thought, oh, I'm stuck to the ground. And then the airplane was feeling really great because he was flying so high, but then it sees a rocket go by and he's like, oh, I'm stuck inside of the, atmosphere here. And then the rocket's feeling really good until it sees a shooting star who's completely free. And I just want you to know that whether you are a bicycle or a rocket ship, anything in between, whoever you are, however you are needed. We need you. We need you to step fully into who you are and do the things that only you can do. Nobody else can do what you can do. So I encourage you step fully into who you are, figure it out and step into it and live full out the beautiful person you are because we need you. This world needs you. I think that's it.
That's excellent advice. Thank you, Marnie, for joining us on the show. And for the listeners, I'll have her information in the description. Thank you for listening.